Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to our sacred community. This is a shining light discussion we're having this evening. The amazing Jennifer Regular, and I am your host, Gretchen Theakston. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. It's really so wonderful to actually be a part of this community, and I'm really honored to be able to share tonight as well.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. I'm really excited about talking to you. Now, for what I've been learning, you are an international speaker, author of Embrace Your Power, a healing journal of self-discovery, and the host of Awaken and Ascend podcast. And you are the soul eliminator. Illuminator, not eliminator.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
eliminator.
Illuminator. Sorry.
Interesting play on words there.
I know. So can you tell me what the soul eliminator means and how you help people with it?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's really activating your soul's calling. And it's a term that a few people had mentioned to me when I was interviewed in different podcasts. And they like the idea of lighting the path, and they call me the soul illuminator just because of some of the wisdom that I was sharing that really inspired them about being able to activate their soul calling, being able to free their spirit to direct the life that they're meant to live, and really shining light on our spiritual sovereignty, which is the antidote to imposter syndrome. Really being able
Right.
to step into that and really being able to step into your passion. The way I see passion, when you break up the word, is pass I on. That I
Yeah.
is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And so it's
Mhm.
really shining the light on that, on illuminating what your soul, how your soul is directing you. And just being able to tap in, be willing to listen to soul, to take that direction and have a much more fulfilling, harmonious kind of life. And so, lighting the path to focus, find freedom and fulfillment on that path by really following the direction of your soul, freeing your spirit to direct the life you're meant to live, and really activating your soul's calling, which just means that you get to be who you came here to be and do what you came here to do.
Thank you for sharing that. That's quite powerful and lovely.
Mm.
How did you get into this work?
Oh, that's a good question. Through the power of change, through many, many different pivots. I actually went to school early 90s. I graduated from university thinking I was going to be a clinical forensic psychologist.
Okay.
And so, dealing more with the dark than the light, actually.
Right.
And that took many different pivots along the way. There was 16 different roles I took on in various aspects of social services.
Mhm.
So working with people with multiple barriers who have become dispirited by society, from authority, through different mental health issues, addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, from immigration issues, all kinds of things that don't really support an empowered way of living, that support an integrated higher consciousness model of living.
Mhm.
And for me, it wasn't enough to see people living this way. I was so purpose driven, so felt the calling from a very early age to be able to support people in really nurturing their gifts, to finding self acceptance, to empowering themselves when they couldn't get it from all those external factors, and helping them recognize that they are perfect. Everything that they need is actually inside,
Mhm.
despite all the outward circumstances and lack
Right.
of resources and lack of support and all of those things. I mean, it really started at a young age, Gretchen. You mentioned about that book, Embrace Your Power. That actually, I conceived of that when I was 10 years old. The way I was observing the world, the way I was absorbing everything that was going on around me, which, many years later found out meant being an empath.
Yeah.
And back then I was writing notes of everything I was observing, trying to make sense of it all, trying to
Mhm.
understand why people act the way they do or towards each other, and the way they perceive the world and the way I was perceiving the world, just learning and growing. I was 10 years old. And I was writing what I thought was going to be a book called When Society Determines Your Destiny.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why I got into social services in the first place, and then mental health, because there was some mental health issues in the family. And just noticing what happens through all of that. How do we become so disconnected from
Mhm.
reality and from ourselves and our families and society, and just all that disconnection that happens and that really shakes our safety and security? And so I took those 16 different roles, trying to figure it all out, seeing where I fit in to help and support others. And along the way, too, I tried many different business ventures, all around alternative mental health, like aromatherapy or health products, or in healing practices, learned a few different modalities that I was practicing with and teaching, and helping people to clear emotional imprints from their cellular memory so that they integrate a higher consciousness model of living by attuning to the higher frequencies that are available that can support a more fulfilling life. And so it's always been a quest throughout my life to find this, and also a lot of learning. Every time I learned something for my own growth and my own healing, which has been quite significant along the way as well, I wanted to share it with everyone else. So I
Sure.
absorb that and then turn around and give it back. So it's always been quite the healing journey. And what I found through that is there's really kind of 3 steps to transformation and change. You start with that self awareness. You go through this rite of passage, which are all these initiations, especially if you're a healer, you go through many, many of them so you can really become and embody being a healer.
Mhm.
And then the rebirth happens, the emergence of that spiritual sovereignty of who we truly are, who we are now, which might be quite different from how it used to be. I didn't
Right.
become a clinical forensic psychologist. I wasn't in a marriage that lasted forever. It lasted as long as it did. And in a home that, was supposed to be forever and then it was gone. And in this bank account that I had lots of money in, ended up having to claim bankruptcy. So everything, and having best friends, that were best friends forever, this idea of forever just became really disillusioned by all of that,
Sure.
because there were so many things that would break down or that I would lose or had to leave or that had changed in some way. So I really became a master of change and really learned to embrace change, because it meant expansion and growth and discovery and exploring what else is possible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're talking my life right now.
Right?
Okay, yeah, okay, that one, a tick there, a tick there. Oh yeah, another tick over there and there. Yeah, it's just like you're knocking on my door going, Gretchen, this is your story. And it's really interesting to hear it from someone else's mouth, because I
Uh-huh.
too have been through a lot of those experiences. I knew at 5 years old that I was a healer. I was
Mhm.
told I was too stupid to do that. I left school and decided I was more than smart enough, took myself through school, had a bad marriage, ended up as a single mom, like had to declare bankruptcy from my last husband. Like, yeah, I lost the house, lost the savings, lost everything, had to rebuild everything, started taking courses and actually stepping into where I am now. So it's like,
Yes.
I've heard this story before, and it's not that unusual for women to have to go through all of this to find out where they really have to be,
Yes.
or where they've been guided to be. Because I think all of us know when we're very young
Mhm.
where we're headed, and then we get turned because of circumstances along the way and have to build ourselves back into where we started from through
Yes,
that whole
yes. And for
journey.
women, it's so pronounced that those kind of conditions give rise to shame and self-doubt and guilt,
Yeah.
because we were born and created and stereotyped into being caregivers.
Yeah.
And so if we weren't doing something to support for someone else or take care of someone else or the earth or whatever it might be, then that guilt would creep in, that self doubt would creep in about what we're supposed to do. And over the years and all the revolutions and feminine power and all of the things, we kind of lost that art of intuition, even, right?
Yeah.
We've come too far into the masculine of doing everything, trying to do everything, right?
Yeah.
And come out of balance. But also for the men, there's a lot of change and transformation happening in the divine masculine as well. People, it's trending now about positive masculinity, being
Mhm.
able to share about early childhood traumas, emotional stuff that
Yeah.
men before weren't really given the opportunity to do
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
Because they had to
Yeah.
project a certain image as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
men don't cry and your emotions don't count because you're supposed to be the strong one. I don't know how many times I've heard that from people, from men.
Exactly, exactly. And it's time to change that narrative,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The
And
courage to.
for women, it's been either too much or not enough. There was
Mhm.
never something in between, which is where we actually live. It was like, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that, or you didn't do this or that. It was always too much or not enough. It's the story of the cycle of women for a
Yes,
long time in history that we're now taking charge and say, I'm enough. I can be as loud as I want to be. I can sit in the corner if I want to. I can do all these things, and you don't get to judge me.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get. I'm finding now after the pandemic, when so many people are still working from home, and we're changing the dynamic of how we work and live our lives, and we're starting to find more balance. But we're also living in a world that is extremely chaotic right now, no matter where you look. There's
Mhm.
something that is, there's hurricanes, there's earthquakes, there's, you know, torrential rainstorms out of nowhere, there's wars here and there, and people generally are walking around with a lot of fear. So
Mhm.
how do we harness that into lessons of growth for people now?
Feel that fear comes to from losing our faith, losing trust, losing our connection, our divine, like not necessarily divine, but our conscious connection with life, with each other. It shatters our sense of security because there's all of this chaos happening.
Mhm,
Part of the source of that is losing our sense of self, our groundedness, our stability. Because if we have that within, then no matter what's going on around us, whether it's our immediate surroundings or further out into the world or to the universe and even into the planets, that we can still stay in alignment if we're practicing soul care, if we're maintaining conscious connections, if we're recognizing impermanence and embracing change, if we're pondering the possibilities to
mhm,
what new growth can come out of this, to embrace the diversity and growth of the human experience,
right.
then
So
we can
how do
shift
we get
the way
people?
that we feel and experience it. Like someone's watching a movie, for example. Right, we'll
Yeah,
try something a little more mundane, a
go for it.
little more casual. Yeah, someone's watching a movie, and let's say it's a group of people. We're all watching the exact same thing happening on the screen, but each
Mhm,
one of us is going to experience that movie differently. It's going to bring up different triggers, different stuff for us. One might be crying, one might be laughing, one might be bored out of their mind, one might just get up and leave because, it's a waste of their time. We all create our own experience of whatever is appearing before us
mhm,
based on our beliefs and our connection to it and how we're feeling in ourselves and kind of where we are on the path is things that affected us. The same incident can happen that we experienced in childhood and can happen again in adulthood, but we experience it very differently
right,
because we're always growing, we're operating at different frequencies, and so we'll experience life differently. And so, with all the wars happening, people can still go on happily in their lives. And there's others that are quite devastated, and there's others that are quite living in fear and chaos. And there's others that are, maybe going out to the store because they're worried about food and they want to stock up. Like everyone's going to create their own experience based on what the appearances are. And it's
right.
all appearances, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you help people connect back into themselves?
To connect back into yourself, it's turning inward. Sometimes that just means closing your eyes for a bit to shut out the world. Sometimes it's literally closing the door. People have that moment of peace in the bathroom, even, right? Just that moment when you can shut the door, you release, you know, coming back to your breath. That is life.
Mhm,
That is life. And sometimes we're holding our breath and we're stuck in that. Tuning back into our natural rhythms means getting back in touch with your breath, with life. So finding those simple practices that seem mundane, but having that chance to do that. There's a
mhm,
simple 20-second reset you can do where you put one hand over the top of your head for 20 seconds, and you can add things to that. It could be an affirmation, it could just be conscious breathing, it could be counting, something that helps you stay focused. So usually it takes about 5 seconds to inhale, 5 seconds to exhale. So you can do
mhm,
that once with one hand. And then the other hand, doing the same thing again with your add ons if you want, or just simply counting or taking those deeper breaths. And that's a
mhm.
reset. That actually rebalances both left and right sides of the brain. So that's where you find that balance between the doing and the being, right? To come back to your center.
Right.
Anything that brings you back to your center, that's what you want to be doing. Bringing you back to your truth. So whether that means journaling, whether that means breath work or yoga or qigong or doing ceremony, some kind of ritual, anything that brings you back to your center and holding your center. Sometimes it could be resting your hands over your heart, closing your eyes, maybe giving yourself like a self hug, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Or reaching out to your higher power, saying, I roll this over to you.
Right.
Show me my place in it, right? Rolling it over. Some people might have a God box, they call it, where you write down your concerns or worries and you put it into your God box. Let God deal with it. Or worry dolls, Guatemalan worry dolls. You can let each doll know, like something where you transfer it on to something else. When I worked in mental health for a while, we had this hope stone. So if someone was feeling like they lost hope, like they just were in a place of despair and there really wasn't anything to hold on to. And so then they put it's a, can you hold this for me? Can you hold it for me? So sometimes you need others to carry that for you, to carry that with you, to share that. So reaching out to someone, if it feels like too much for you, you're just completely overwhelmed, in a state of despair, you can't even gather yourself to be able to journal or do any breath work or anything else, then reach out. That is a call for help.
And
you
why
need
do
to reach
people, why do people find it so hard to reach out and ask for help?
They're afraid that what are people going to think of them? I was a counselor for so many years and I wouldn't go to people. I'd keep it all in. That's where I discovered energy work. Going, you can get the issues out of my tissues for good without having me to talk about it. Sign me up, because I was the go-to person. Everyone came to me. So if I was feeling vulnerable or sad or upset or afraid, I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know how to even talk about it because I wasn't in touch with that part of me until I started going to different groups and becoming comfortable and watching everyone else do it. And then I started to do it myself, but we're afraid to reach out. That's a question to ask yourself. What's holding me back? Why won't I reach out? What's really going on there? Doing some self-inquiry, building that self-awareness, saying, wouldn't it be amazing if I made a phone call today or wrote a letter or sent a message? And if you don't want to reach out, go to your higher power. Go into your journal and write about it, or, talk to your spirit guides if you believe in that. Talk to your God of your understanding if you believe in that. Talk to your higher self if you believe in that. Reconnect. That conscious connection is primary. Like you need that's number one. Because that feeling of separation is what creates that feeling of fear and anxiety and depression, right? Depression is really resisting life. So as soon as you start gently stepping back into life and the things that you enjoy, that depression starts to disappear.
Yeah, that's all true. If someone wants to reach out to you and work with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, well, watch the podcast at Awaken and Ascend on YouTube, because there are so many transformational experts that are coming on every week that cover so many different topics. So you're bound to learn something, some kind of tool or strategy, or having experience that inspires you, that uplifts you. So I'm a host of that. So I encourage people to go to that. SacredYou.love is hosting a Wake Up and Change the World Summit that I'm hosting in March week of March 6th. And we have over 25 influential speakers on that, covering topics such as healing and empowerment, consciousness and spirit, protecting your greatest assets of time, energy, and money, connecting with your life purpose, all of the things that are going to help support an integrated higher consciousness model of living. So these are sessions. They're not so much interviews and talks, or actual sessions that can really support you in living the life that is more fulfilling for you, that nourishes you. So I strongly encourage you to get a free ticket for that while it's available now. And those are the key ways that I would encourage people. In a couple of weeks, I think it's the end of March, I'll be holding my 7-week course called Ascend, which is 7 steps into embodied leadership. I don't work with people one-to-one so much anymore, but prior to the course, I'd invite people to come to a free Zoom session. It's like a group coaching session where you get to learn about how to activate your soul's calling, how to restore that inner light. So we could just have a discussion, even if you're not interested in the course right now, just to have a little taste of what else is possible. So lightingthepath.ca is the website to go to for all of that.
Okay, great. And all that stuff we have available and we'll be sending out when this goes, wherever it goes. I don't know where it goes.
Yes.
Those places. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
a free guide there too for soul care, essential soul care that I've been talking about, finding solace in everyday life to be able to tap
Mhm.
into creating that solace, that safety, that security, that peace that we all want.
Yeah, finding that moment of joy every day somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. This has been illuminating. I really enjoyed it. And please come back and talk with us again. And I'm looking forward to your summit. And I'm hoping everybody comes and joins up for us. That will be on sacredu.love. You can join for $1 for 21 days. Check out all of the different tribes we have, all the different discussions we have, and see if it'll fit into your life. We'd love to have you join us. So thank you so much, Jennifer, and everyone who was here watching us. I really appreciate it. And have
Thank
yourself a
you.
good night. Thank you so much.